Are you looking to get sweaty with your damage and you're looking to eke out as much damage as possible from your artifacts, weapons, build, what have you? Well, this is definitely the video for you because this tool is absolutely insane. It goes over every aspect of your damage and it has modifiers for days. So if you're ready to look at some numbers, stick around because we're getting right into it. All right, guys, so I know in the intro is probably a little bit hard to read everything. I know it was really small, but I just wanted to show you guys the overall scope of this tool. This tool is really insane and could really change the game when it comes to building your characters and figuring out which artifacts are better on them if you have two pieces you're going between or you're looking at upgrading a different weapon instead of the one you have now. It's really helpful. I've been really enjoying this tool. So this tool was built by a Reddit user named ImpactGCalc. I will be putting the link down to his original post down in the description. If at any point in this video you notice a change that you would like to see or some new feature added, I highly advise you go ahead to that post, add it in the comments below. I know that he is actively working on this project. I've actually noticed myself there were a couple of changes that I wanted to see. He's already implemented those and it's only been about a week since I first started using this, so he is actively working on changes and making this as good as possible. So if, like I said, you have any changes you'd like to see, head over there and include them, and hopefully he can include them in the future. So what makes this tool so good? First of all, the UI is fairly clean. When you first look at it, it can be a little intimidating. I will admit there are a lot of numbers, there's a lot of different colors, and it's like, whoa, there's a lot going on here. But when it comes down to it, it is fairly easy. So when you come over here, if this is something you're looking to do, the first thing I would recommend doing is creating an account. You're just creating an account basically just so that you can save character profiles. So you are going to have to input a lot of different stats. So if you don't want to lose those and do those every time you want to change a new stat or change a new weapon, you're going to have to create an account. So that way you can save just like this. So you can load a build. You can see I have two builds here, just so that way whenever I want to reload my Razor build, I don't have to re-input all the stats. I can just click on this and it will reload. So when you start, your character screen is actually going to look like this. It's going to default to Amber. If you, of course, don't want to use Amber, we can switch over to whatever hero we want to. We're, of course, going to use Razor. Everything is going to be defaulted at 0. No artifacts built in. You're going to be able to see his basic stats. On the left side, these are going to be all of your basic stats. We have the initial values right here. We have any modified values. That's basically going to be anything from over here in the middle, which is your artifacts, your weapons, anything like that. Eventually we'll get over to the right side and you'll have some additional modifiers there. And of course you have your totals. You can go down and it's all the same attributes you would see in game. So you have your HP, your attack, defense, all your basics. You have your percentage boosts, you have your advanced stats, your crit percent, your crit damage, your heal, incoming heal, all that kind of stuff. We have your buffs, which are more likely coming from your resonances, from your skills, from your burst, stuff like that. Plus, just like in game, you have your elemental type. So you have your damages and resistances. That's all stuff that we're used to seeing. In the middle here, this is where all your calculations are going to be inputted, basically. So at the top here, you have your constellation, you have your level, which we can then adjust. We have your attack level, which is your basic attack, your skill level, and your burst level. You can then input what your weapon is, how high refined it is, what level it is, and all this information, this weapon attack, the substat, it will automatically input that for you. And next, you'll see kind of the toggle ability. So as we go through this, if there is an ability that you'd like to toggle, there are going to be toggles that you can turn off and on abilities, and we'll see that in the future. Next up, we have our artifacts. So from here, you can select what set. So let's say we want to do a Gladiator's Finale. Boom, we can select that. It will automatically say, do you want a 4-star or 5-star version? We can go ahead and select whichever star piece we have. And we can see right here that it is actively changing because the base HP will change depending on whether you have a 4-star or 5-star piece. We then have all our substats, which we can then change just by opening up the sub menu like this. You can then change whatever the substat is. Of note, for all your other artifacts, it will actually only give you access to the substats that piece could have, so you don't have to worry about that. Whatever you can pick, that artifact piece can have it. So basically, when you're going through and adding all your artifacts, you have to select what set you have, what level it is, and then your HP will level up automatically, which is very nice. But then you do have to go in and enter all your substats. This is the most time consuming part, but once you get it done, as long as you save your character, you only have to do it once. now we get to the real sweaty stuff. So first of all, we have enemy modifiers. So by default, this is turned off. So whenever you're seeing damage numbers, this is not including any damage resistance or elemental resistance. So that may be why when you first do all your calculations, your averages or your numbers are slightly off, because you're not actually taking into consideration enemies' defense. So keep that in mind if you are trying to calculate numbers on a specific enemy. You can do that here, but for the most part, I just keep this off because I'm not looking for specific numbers against a certain enemy. I'm just looking to see overall which artifact piece or weapon is better. So for the most part, I don't even touch this section, but it's nice that it is here if you need that. Next up is the real sweaty part. So party buffs. This is where we can go in. We can choose what resonances we want. We can also choose from so much other stuff. So if we want to calculate damage with superconduct, if we want to calculate damage with Bennett's burst and he has X amount of attack, it's talent level, we can do that. If we want to calculate with Klee is being hit by Jumpty Dumpty mines, we can do that. Like every single character that has some kind of stat lowering or raising ability is in here, and if you want to calculate damage with that, you can do that. You can also calculate your artifact buffs, stuff like that. So I mean, I'm gonna let you guys go through this because there is a lot of information here. There's a lot of choices you can select, and for the most part, I don't think a lot of people will go too in depth with that because that's really specific, but that's a huge thing that it is here. Next up, we have the optimize window. We will go further into that once we, go over everything here, and then I open up my own characters page. Then on the right side, this is where you're gonna get your results, and this is the part that's very important. So on here, you're going to have your overall DPS, you have your non-crit DPS, you have your crit DPS, and you have your average. So of course, this is the part that most people are going to be looking out for because you want to calculate how to do the most DPS. Your average is where you're most likely going to want to look, just because you're not always going to non-crit and you're not always going to crit. So average is going to be roughly the best number over a period of time. You'll be able to see, the average DPS of every specific hit. You'll be able to see your reaction damage, which most of the time, because these are kind of flat numbers, you won't have any normal or crits here. You'll just have this. Then, of course, you can go down to your skill and your burst. And if you're, trying to calculate damage off of these, you can go ahead and implement whatever, modifier is on your character. You'll see it pop up here. And then finally, at the bottom, you have your passives, constellations, and artifact effects. So if you have an effect like the Gladiator set, the 4-piece set, you can go ahead and toggle that on down here. So now that we've gone over the basics of this calculator and everything, aesthetically that you need to know, let's go ahead and look at an actual example. So now, as an example of what you can expect to see once you fill out your whole character, this is my Razor. This is his current build, and these are all his accurate numbers. I've gone and double checked these in game, and it does calculate these exactly correct. So you don't have to worry about that at all if that was at all a worry of yours. But we can see here, like in his damage output, on average, I'm putting out 14k DPS, which is not bad at all. That's not too shabby. One thing to keep in mind, though, that when you're using this tool, it is not the best at comparing two characters to each other. So if we look at Bennett here, my Bennett is currently built as a carry. You look at his average DPS, and this is 4,000, and I can tell you that that is not accurate. So the reason that this is not accurate is it is accurate if we were doing just Bennett's damage. The problem is it does not take into consideration any reaction damage. So he's getting a lot of his damage off of Vaporize and Melt triggers because of my Chongyun and Xing Cho. So it's not the best when comparing like a Bennett to a Razor as carry, but if you wanted to compare, for example, this is the same exact Razor as mine. The only difference is that I've switched his weapon with a prototype Aminus, level 90, just so we compare. So if we're comparing his DPS, we have his DPS and we have his total DPS. The total DPS is calculating his DPS with his bonus hits. So if for whatever reason you wanted to calculate his damage without bonus hits, you could. And then if we switch over to my Wolf's Gravestone build, you can see that it's quite a bit higher. On average, we're getting about 2k extra damage per second. Then we could also switch down. We also have Debate Club here at Refinement 5. Total DPS, we're looking about 12.7. So, you know, you can use this to compare weapons. If you also wanted to compare artifacts, you could do that. So let's go ahead and switch one of these up real quick. So one thing that people have commonly asked me is physical damage important on a cup here instead of attack percent? Well, we can check. So currently we have physical damage here as a main stat. We're getting 14.4k average DPS. We switch this over to attack percent and wow, that drops us a lot. So you can see now, granted, my substats are the same on this weapon. It hasn't changed the substats at all. Like if we switch back to physical damage, you can see that they're exactly the same. So in that sense, it's not perfect, but because these are so minimal as opposed to the main stat, you can get an overall idea of what a main stat change would do for you. The other thing you can do is you can come down here to the optimize section. So let's say we still want to take a look at our cup here. We can go ahead and change this to the goblet. Make sure you disable this auto equip top result because it will actually change whatever the cup is or whatever artifact piece you choose here. It will automatically equip that. So if you turn this off, it's just going to display the stats for you as opposed to equip it for you. So we can do this optimize artifact main stat. And then we can take a look here. So if physical damage is our main stat, our average DPS is going to be 14k. If we drop that down to attack percent, we're looking at 12k. And for whatever reason, if you want to pick a different substat on your cup, which I would not suggest doing, because you can see we're seeing a 4k drop. So you can see all the different comparisons between the main stats right here. So that is really nice. But again, it does not take into consideration the substats of your artifacts. So let's say you have 2 plus 25-star artifacts and you have them specific and their substats are pretty close. Or let's say the attack main stat had like way more crit rate or way more crit damage. Then what you would need to do, you know, is just have your main build and then load up a second build. So you could load up a Razor Carry here, and then you could go and input a second artifact here. Like you could put your attack percentage, and let's say crit rate was sky high, right? Then we could take a look and, okay, we're getting 14 average now, and then over here, so it's just slightly lower. So you could do something like that to compare artifacts. Now, the last thing we can do is optimize our weapon. Now, if you wanted to select a different way to optimize your weapon, you could, but for the most part, I suggest just keeping it to default because it will give you the overall improvement of your weapon. So we can go ahead, optimize weapon, and as you'll see here, Royal Greatsword is the best claymore that Razor can use. What? Well, keep in mind that the stats that this is actually calculating for are the stats that you have built in for your character. Now, I've said this on streams and videos. My Razor is not built correctly in terms of crit. So if you look over here, his crit rate is only 35.7 and his crit damage is 151, which is very much out of balance. He needs some more crit rate, or we need to take some of that crit damage and put it into crit rate, either or. Currently, I can't squeeze any more crit rate out of him unless I got some better substats, but I could go ahead and put a crit rate piece on him for a circle, because if you look right here, currently he has a crit damage piece, and that is why Royal Greatsword is higher, because once it takes into consideration all my stats, it's saying, hey, your build needs some more crit rate, so overall, having a Royal Greatsword is going to increase your DPS. But on the second build, I have it exactly the same. The only thing I've done is change crit damage to crit rate on the main stat. I've even left all the substats the same because, of course, we can't judge for substats. But if we look here, Royal Greatsword has dropped down to 3rd place and Wolf's Gravestone is still 1st place. But keep that in mind. If you go to optimize your weapon and you find that it's a weapon that you don't think it should be, it might be because your artifacts aren't built correctly. So it's a little bit of a push and pull, but take those things into consideration if you're using these optimized tools. So hopefully that video is a little bit of help to you guys who are looking to squeeze as much value as you can out of your characters, or you're just looking to see what you should be looking to build for with your artifacts and your weapons when you're farming. Hopefully you guys did enjoy. If you did and you like the tool, make sure to head over to the Reddit post. It's ImpactGCalc is the user. Make sure to give him some love. And again, if you have any changes, ideas, or things that you'd like to let him know, please go ahead and go over to the Reddit post. Again, I will be linking it down in the description below. Let him know. He is very active over there, and it looks like he is optimizing this and updating it very currently. So that's always nice to see. But guys, that's all I got for today. Hopefully you did enjoy. If you did and you want to check out some more content from me, you can head over to my Twitch page, twitch.tv/xjazze, or you can support us right here on YouTube by clicking that red subscribe button, like the video if you liked it, and click that notification bell. That way you never miss a video. But guys, that's all I got for today. Hopefully you did enjoy, and I'll see y'all in the next video. Peace.